On the day I married Julian, his ex-wife showed up with their child in tow. "Daddy, why are you cheating on us and marrying a homewrecker behind our backs? Shameless woman, there are millions of men out there, yet you only have eyes for my dad." The moment those words left her mouth, everyone pointed at me, muttering that I had no decency left. To save my dignity, I forced Julian to tell the truth, that Hartwell'd been divorced for ages and I was no homewrecker. I never expected that, just to protect his ex and their son, Hartwell would pull the wedding band off his finger and fling it in my face in front of the whole crowd. "Skylar, this wedding is off. I'm going home with my wife and child." Hartwell said it as lightly as remarking on the weather, yet the sentence nailed me to the pillar of shame. Guests grabbed whatever was at hand, wineglasses, cake, cups of tea, and hurled them at Mom and me, screaming that I was a shameless homewrecker and that my mother had raised a slut. The shock was too much for her. She died that very night. I cradled her body and sobbed for 24 hours straight. In the haze of grief, I rang Julian's best friend. "You've always been in love with me, haven't you? Here's your chance, marry me, right now." I walked out of Eastbrook Crematorium clutching Mom's urn, tears falling like rain. I was born into a single-parent family. Dad died the night I was born, and Mom raised me alone through every hardship. Only she knew the bitterness, how, at the worst of it, people mocked her as a mistress who'd given birth to a bastard and drove us out. So I despise being labeled a homewrecker, and Julian knew that better than anyone, yet Hartwell still trampled on my feelings. All Hartwell ever did was beg me to be generous, reminding me I'd grown up without a father and asking me to show more kindness to his child. Because Hartwell knew my rawest wound, I kept forgiving, yet Hartwell kept cutting deeper. If the boy cried, Julian would abandon sick, bedridden me to comfort him. One call from Bianca, no matter how late or how fierce the storm, and Julian would leave without hesitation. And on our wedding day Hartwell still chose them. If Hartwell couldn't let them go, why had Hartwell pursued me at all? Why ask me to marry him? I wiped my tears and was about to leave town when Julian called. His voice dripped with worry and apology. "Skylar, I'm sorry. I never told Logan that Bianca and I were divorced, so Hartwell thinks you're the other woman. You know how fragile kids are. I figured you, of all people, would understand." Ha! I knew Hartwell'd use my painful past as a shield. But this time I was tired. I refused to play his pathetic game. "Julian, do you know where I am right now?" "Where?" I gave a bitter laugh. "Eastbrook Crematorium." "Daddy, did you just say you and Mommy are divorced? Wara, you're all bad guys, abandoning me, nobody wants me." Julian's child drowned me out with wails. Whether Julian even heard me, I'll never know. The call cut off. I swallowed my grief and turned away, handling Mom's funeral alone. Not a single person attended. I took her ashes back to our hometown and buried her beside Dad. My father had been a firefighter. The night I was born, Hartwell died saving Mrs. Hartwell, trapped in a blaze. So the girl they sneered at as a bastard was actually a hero's orphan. "Mom, sleep in peace. Skylar has grown up. She can take care of herself." I pulled off the one-of-a-kind wedding band Julian had given me and hurled it away. It sailed in a pale arc and vanished for good. When everything was done, I headed straight to Eastbrook City Hall. Clutching my birth certificate folder, I spotted Adrian pacing anxiously from afar. The instant Hartwell saw me, joy flooded his face. "Skylar, you actually came. I thought you were joking. Have you ever known me to joke? Let's go." Adrian seized my hand and held it tight, afraid I'd bolt. No one understood the mess between Julian and me better than Adrian. The moment the clerk stamped our license, Adrian spun me around in his arms, laughing out loud. But the second the certificate was in his hand, his assistant rushed up to remind him 300 investors were still waiting in the boardroom. Only then did I realize Adrian had left shareholders and partners cooling their heels for me. I urged him to go. Hartwell promised to pick me up the moment the meeting ended. Hartwell even took our license and locked it in his office safe, which left me speechless. I never expected to run into Julian and Bianca outside City Hall. The moment Julian saw me, Hartwell dropped Bianca's hand and rushed over. "Skylar, I need to explain." The moment Logan found out Bianca and I were divorced, Hartwell threatened to kill himself unless we got remarried. If I don't agree, Hartwell says I'm not his dad anymore. Don't worry, after Bianca and I get the license in front of him and Hartwell calms down, We'll divorce immediately. Bianca and I are dead to each other." A smile Hartwell couldn't quite hide clashed with the apology in his eyes. I swallowed the bile in my throat. "I understand. Don't stress, I'll never be petty or angry." Julian looked touched and stepped in to hug me, but before Hartwell could make contact, his son shook a can of Coke and sprayed it all over my face and clothes. "Evil woman, trying to steal my daddy again." Julian started to scold, but Bianca swept the boy into her arms with a wounded look. "Julian, don't you dare. Hartwell's only a baby, you swore you'd never hurt him for some outsider's sake." At those words, the crowd turned on me once more. Homewreckers these days have no shame at all. God, the kid's that big and she's still breaking up their family, disgusting. Julian just stood there cradling the boy, murmuring apologies to Bianca, while the onlookers closed in, shoving me, spitting insults. A flame of rage erupted inside me. "I'm not the other woman, you've got it wrong. Julian divorced her long before Hartwell ever pursued me." "Julian, say something." My sudden fury frightened the child into louder sobs. Hartwell didn't even bother to hide his disgust, didn't spare me a single glance before wrapping his arms around them and walking inside to register. The moment Hartwell left, the onlookers branded me the homewrecker. "Julian, your shamelessness has finally shown me that you and I were never even friends." I returned to the apartment I'd shared with Julian and packed my things without a flicker of nostalgia. Just then, Eleanor showed up at the door. She stood like a queen on her dais, raking me with a disdainful side eye, her voice as cold as crushed ice. "Skylar, you know Bianca's back, don't you?" She flung a certified check onto the coffee table. "Certain money could make me disappear. This sum should keep you comfortable for the rest of your life. You were never the daughter-in-law I wanted, Bianca is. The Hartwell gate isn't open to just anyone." Facing her insults and icy sneers, I no longer bowed the way I used to. I tore the check in half and tossed the pieces at her feet. "Don't worry, Eleanor. I will never set foot inside the Hartwell gate." She hadn't expected the meek girl who'd always cowered in front of her to suddenly bare her teeth. Eleanor grabbed the teacup from the table and flung the tea in my face. "Who gave you the guts to speak to me like that? A gutter rat like you should be grateful to perch behind Julian as his pretty canary. Your ancestors must be burning incense in their graves." I snatched another cup and threw the tea right back at her. "You're wrong, Eleanor. I'm not some slum kid, I'm the orphaned daughter of a firefighter hero. 20 years ago, when Hartwell Manor caught fire, my father, the squad captain, charged in without a thought for his own life and dragged you out. You're alive now, loved by a husband, surrounded by children. But after we lost Dad, we lived every day under ridicule." Eleanor raised her hand to slap me, stopping 2 inches from my cheek, trembling. She said nothing, only pressed her lips into a thin line and stared. For a second I thought she might feel shame, might owe my father a sliver of remorse. But the next moment her palm cracked across my face. So what? Saving me was his duty. Pulling me out was his glory. If Hartwell hadn't rescued me, how could Hartwell have been hailed a hero after death? Hartwell basked in my reflected light. I stood stunned. Eleanor's polish was only skin deep. Underneath, she was a self-righteous hypocrite. Her slap had barely echoed when Julian walked in. Hartwell heard the slap, but not who'd struck whom. Eleanor hurried toward him, clutching her own reddened cheek, tears streaming. "Julian, you're back. I only came to comfort Skylar." And she hit me. Seeing the scarlet welt on Eleanor's face, Julian's expression darkened. "What's this about? I already explained everything with Bianca. You agreed to tolerate it, so why take it out on my mother?" For the first time, Hartwell shoved me hard enough to send me sprawling. I glared at Eleanor with pure hatred. This was the woman my father had died to save. "What are you looking at my mother like that for? If you dare this when I'm standing here, what would you do when I'm gone?" "Julian, I don't blame you for being blind. I'm only here to tell you, it's over. If I'd known Eleanor was the one my father saved, I would never have dated Julian in the first place." My breakup stunned him. Hartwell claimed his marriage to Bianca was a family arrangement, devoid of love. Only with me had Hartwell felt warmth, real love. I ignored his babbling and went back to packing. Then dozens of photos pinged into my phone from Bianca. In every shot, Julian gazed at her with naked devotion. "Skylar, be smart and leave him. You'll never win against me. We share a child. Julian will never truly abandon us. The message was clear. If I stayed, I'd only invite more humiliation. Between the two of us, Bianca would always come first. Julian stepped in and grabbed my wrist. Skylar, calm down. If we just hold on a little longer, everything will work out. Smack. Julian, you're vile. It was the first time I'd ever hit him. His rotten face sickened me. If you can't let go of them, don't mess with me. Stay and let all of you trample me. What am I to you, your dirty little secret, or the woman you swear you'll marry? You don't even know. Don't ever tell me to wait again. Because you'll never choose me. I shoved the dazed man aside, suitcase in hand, and walked out only to meet Bianca on the landing. She looked at me and broke into a sinister grin. Before I could react, she shoved her child down the stairs. The little boy screamed in pain. Eleanor and Julian rushed out. Bianca pointed a trembling finger at me. Skylar, what have you done? How could you take your anger out on my child, pushing a 5-year-old down the stairs? Hartwell's still growing. At her words, Eleanor punched me, and Julian shoved me down the steps. Skylar, I misjudged you. You pretend to be kind, but you're poisonous. If you can't tolerate a child, then get out. Hartwell stepped past me and scooped the crying boy into his arms, racing to the hospital. But Eleanor wasn't finished. She summoned bodyguards to pin me to the floor. You dare hurt my grandson? I'll make you pay. Such flawless, delicate hands, what a pity they grew on the wrong body. Hack them off. You wouldn't. Aren't you afraid my father's ghost will come for you? Ha. I'll hire a priest to bind his soul so Hartwell can't even haunt me. Do it, stop wasting time. I thrashed with all my strength, but the guards were iron. I saw the blade rise, glinting, and my world bleached white as I squeezed my eyes shut in terror. Suddenly, violent crashes exploded through the room, followed by anguished screams. My hands still seemed to be there, as if they hadn't been chopped off. I opened my eyes with a shudder. The door had been kicked in, and every guard who'd pinned me lay on the floor howling like ghosts. Eleanor had taken a fist to the face as well. Before I could process anything, I was lifted into a warm embrace. His broad, powerful chest and the steady thud of his heart melted every trace of fear. Wifey, I'm here. Every last bastard who bullied you, your husband won't let a single one off the hook. Eleanor froze the moment she recognized Adrian. Adrian, you were Julian's brother. You dare mess with his woman to get at me. Who gave you the guts to bark at me like that? The Hartwells survive by clinging to the Blackwoods, and now you dare snarl at the hand that feeds you. Must be tired of living. She hadn't expected such humiliation from Adrian. Even fuming, she didn't dare lash out. The Hartwells simply weren't in the same league as the Blackwoods. They'd only squeezed into high society by latching onto them. What did you just call her? She asked uneasily. Adrian lifted his gaze and raked her with a glance as cold as if she were a beggar, no warmth, no mercy. I have a legal marriage license. Skylar is my wife, the mistress of the Blackwood name, someone you'll have to bow to and address as Mrs. Blackwood. The color on Eleanor's face turned into an epic montage, black, red, white, like she'd swallowed a fistful of fly droppings and had to gulp them down. I'd been shoved down the stairs by Julian and was covered in injuries. Yet I still forced myself out of Adrian's arms. I limped over to Eleanor and slapped her across the face. That slap is for my father, the man who died saving you. From now on, stock up on good deeds. If karma bites again, there won't be a second hero around to rescue you. Eleanor cupped her cheek and glared at me with venomous hatred, but she didn't dare utter a word. I'd become someone she couldn't afford to offend, so I gave her a second slap to drive the lesson home. A dog has no right to glare at its owner. She clearly hadn't thought I'd throw her own insult back at her so quickly. Because of the fall, my head started to spin. As I keeled over, a pair of strong arms caught me. Wifey, what's wrong? When I opened my eyes again, Adrian was slumped over my bedside, asleep. I lifted my hand and gently rested it on his head, stroking him softly, carefully. Memories flooded back. Every time Julian had neglected me, Adrian had stood behind me, watching. Hartwell never stepped forward. Hartwell only guarded me from the shadows. I knew Hartwell loved me deeply, but back then my heart belonged only to Julian. Who would have guessed that, after all the twists and turns, The one beside me in the end would be Adrian. Wifey, taking advantage of me while I'm asleep isn't fair. Hartwell caught my hand and sat upright. The moment our eyes met, we both smiled. I've prepared a huge gift for Eleanor. Across the hospital, Julian had rushed Logan into emergency care. Only after the boy was out of danger did Hartwell breathe again. Bianca had stepped out to buy fruit, leaving Julian alone with the child. Bored and restless, Hartwell finally remembered Hartwell also shoved me down the stairs. How badly hurt was I? While his thoughts wandered, the boy woke up. Daddy, I don't want Mommy anymore, she's a bad guy. Julian frowned. Logan had always clung to Bianca. Why would Hartwell say that? Logan, why do you think Mommy's a bad guy? Because Mommy. Logan, little kids shouldn't talk like that. Bianca stood in the doorway, fruit bag in hand, smiling stiffly at her son. The instant Logan saw her, Hartwell shrank into Julian's arms and refused to let go. Julian assumed the boy was simply being clingy and ruffled his hair with a chuckle. Bianca peeled an apple and handed it to him. Eat up. Spotting the threat glinting in her eyes, Logan timidly took the fruit. Satisfied, Bianca flashed a smile that quickly turned fierce. Julian, did you see the bruises on our son? Skylar's a wolf in sheep's clothing. If you still cling to her and plan to divorce me just to marry her, she might end up hurting our boy. To get what she wanted, Bianca hadn't hesitated to shove her own child down the stairs. In ruthlessness, she left Eleanor in the dust. When Julian stayed silent, neither defending nor condemning me, a flash of malice crossed Bianca's face. At that moment Julian's phone chimed with a new video. Eleanor would never know every move she'd made had been captured on security footage. I hadn't let a single frame slip. I wanted every relative and everyone who'd branded Mom and me as homewreckers to see the truth. Hartwell tapped the clip and watched his own mother browbeating me, striking first, spewing cruelty. That was when Hartwell learned the hero who'd saved his mom 2 decades ago was my father. Yet she'd hurled venom at her rescuer and hunted his daughter to the grave. How could this be? How? Hartwell shot to his feet, pain ravaging his face. Hartwell wasn't the only recipient. I'd paid top dollar to push the clip onto every major platform. Those who'd humiliated Mom and me finally hung their heads in shame. His mother wasn't the other woman. I wasn't either. We were an honorable firefighter's surviving kin, cursed by the very people we'd protected. Eleanor was slapped to the floor by Avery himself. Look at the foul mess you've made. My own wife, venomous, heartless, utterly without conscience. Husband, I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Once regal and elegant, she crumpled under his blows, disheveled and wretched. The moment the footage hit the internet, society nailed her to the pillory. Netizens cursed her to die a dog's death, branded her an ungrateful beast. She didn't dare step outside, she stayed barricaded inside Hartwell Manor. When Julian saw his mother's true colors, Hartwell was livid. Just as Hartwell turned to leave the ward, Logan clutched at him. Daddy, don't go. If you leave, Mommy will beat me to death. Julian froze, baffled by the child's words. Bianca panicked and moved to silence the boy. But Hartwell was a second too late. The little boy scrambled off the bed and limped straight toward Julian. Daddy, it was Mommy who pushed me down the stairs. What? Julian's eyes snapped wide, fixing on Bianca, who shifted from foot to foot. Is what Hartwell's saying true? Explain. No, it's not true. The boy's been poisoned by Skylar. Enough. Don't even try to lie to me. Logan and Skylar have never gotten along for a single minute. How could she have put him up to anything? Bianca had no comeback. The guilt on her face had already betrayed her. Seeing it, Julian roared at her in disgust. So the one who's been hurt all along was Skylar. Damn you, you'd shove your own flesh and blood down the stairs just to frame her? Did it ever cross your mind that if Hartwell died you'd have to live with it? Julian's palm cracked across Bianca's cheek. Hartwell forbade her to go near the child again, afraid she'd take her rage out on him. After telling the bodyguards, Julian strode out of the hospital. Hartwell remembered the day Hartwell had shoved me down those stairs, and his face went white. Julian yanked out his phone and called me. The number you have dialed has been disconnected. The cold mechanical voice made his heart lurch. Hartwell tried iMessage next. The text wouldn't go through. An ugly red exclamation mark glared at him. Skylar, are you angry with me? Do you hate me now? Hartwell paced, muttering, the hand clutching the phone trembling. It was the first time since we'd met that I had blocked him. Without another second in that place, Hartwell bolted from the hospital and raced home, running red lights all the way. Hartwell couldn't bear the truth. The man who had saved his mother was my father, yet instead of gratitude Hartwell had stood with his ungrateful mother and struck me. When Hartwell burst through the door, every trace of me was already gone. Every corner that had held something of mine was stripped bare. Only then did Hartwell remember breakup day, when I told him it was over. I had meant it. I wasn't coming back. Hartwell speed-dialed his assistant. Find Skylar, no matter what it takes. Turn the whole city upside down if you have to. The moment Hartwell hung up, Hartwell spotted a hair clasp lying on the coffee table and a letter beside it. One line was written inside. I'm returning what's yours. From now on we're even. That clasp had been the token of our engagement. Because I'd been ashamed, taunted by classmates who called me bastard, I'd always kept heavy bangs to hide my face and my hurt. It was Julian who had lifted those bangs with the clasp, who'd rescued me from their bullying. Hartwell promised that with him around no one would dare touch me again. Hartwell told me to stop hanging my head, to look those girls straight in the eye. The weaker you act, the more they prey on you. If Hartwell hadn't been that good to me once, I could never have loved him so single-mindedly for so long. Julian closed the clasp in his fist. The tremor wouldn't stop. Returning it meant I'd let him go. There was nothing between us anymore. Only after Hartwell lost me did regret set in. Clasp clenched tight, Hartwell turned and left. Hartwell searched everywhere we'd been, my favorite cafe, the park, the music square, our secret garden, but I was nowhere. Night after night Hartwell didn't sleep. Pain and exhaustion carved lines into his face. Hartwell had divorced Bianca, so why had Hartwell still been blind? Why hadn't Hartwell defended Skylar? Why had Hartwell let her and her mother be humiliated as homewreckers? The thought tormented him. Hartwell drowned himself in whiskey just to pass the nights. On the 5th day his assistant finally got a lead. Mr. Hartwell, when you told me to start with Skylar's mother, I discovered Rose has died. What? Julian shot to his feet. After you left the ceremony, she and her mother were attacked by the guests. Rose suffered a heart attack that night and passed away. Julian collapsed onto the sofa, mouth opening and closing in shock. Now what stood between them wasn't just misunderstanding, an ex-wife, and a child, but a life. For the first time Julian truly repented. Hartwell cursed himself for his indecision that day, for the mess Hartwell could never clean up. And Skylar? Hartwell managed at last. She's at the Blackwood estate. Word is she's marrying Adrian. What? Under Adrian's devoted care my injuries healed quickly. That afternoon Hartwell took me back to the university we'd once attended. His large hand held mine tightly, as if afraid I'd vanish. I tilted my head to study his face, nothing but foolish joy and excitement there. Beyond him the campus rolled out, full of beautiful memories, and a few ugly ones. Back then, isolated, I would sit alone beneath the bougainvillea, and there was always someone on the second-floor balcony watching over me. That someone was Adrian. Without him I wouldn't merely have been ignored, I'd have been bullied. You sat right there, eyes glued to Julian, never noticing the man standing behind you. I told myself that if you ever turned around you'd see there was one guy on earth crazy about you. I even swore that if you chose me, I'd never let go, I'd hold this hand for the rest of our lives. Spoken by anyone else, those words might have slid off my heart, but because it was Adrian, I believed every syllable. I rose on tiptoe and brushed a kiss across his full, sensuous lips. Adrian, I always knew you were behind me. That's why, in the end, I chose you. Not out of pique, but because I'd learned that love's value lies in single-minded constancy. Shock and delight flooded Adrian's eyes. Hartwell pulled me closer and deepened the kiss. Summer wind stirred bougainvillea blossoms, petals whirled through the air. Then a figure streaked toward us like lightning. Adrian, you've got some nerve stealing my woman. By the time Julian appeared we had already stepped apart, both of us regarding his sweaty, panting form with icy calm. Whose woman? Watch your mouth. You're a married man, and we're both single, an unmarried woman, an unmarried man. What's improper about a hug? Julian's eyes flamed scarlet as Hartwell glared at Adrian, The air turned leaden. Bianca and I getting remarried was out of desperation. I was terrified our son might hurt himself. Enough, Julian. If you can't let go of your ex-wife and your kid, then don't mess with me. My mom died because of you people. Did you really think I'd keep waiting around like I used to? Heaven knows if we owed you something in a past life. My father gave his life rescuing your mother from that inferno, and my mom died of heartbreak because of your cowardice and shamelessness. If I don't put an ocean between us, I'll probably be next. Would that finally make you happy? Julian's face twisted in agony, tears blurring his eyes in an instant. Hartwell probably sensed how our story ended, yet still begged the universe for my forgiveness. Skylar, I'm sorry, my whole family owes you that apology. Save it. I've already reclaimed justice my own way. As for us, this is goodbye. Don't come looking for me again. Panicking, Julian lunged forward and tried to grab my hand. Adrian blocked him, pulling me behind him like a shield. Move. I need to speak to Skylar. I'm her husband, the legally recognized kind, and you want me to step aside so you can hit on my wife. Adrian's fist slammed into Julian's face, sending him to the pavement. Hartwell stared up at me, dazed, waiting for some kind of answer. You remember the day you and Bianca filed your marriage license? Adrian and I had already signed ours before you two even walked through the door. Those words drove a blade straight through Adrian's heart, then twisted it for good measure. No, impossible. Adrian, give her back to me, damn it. Adrian looked down at him, cold fury freezing his features. Give her back so your mother can hire someone to hack off her hands. Julian froze. What are you talking about, cutting off hands? Skylar, did my mother? Neither of us answered. We simply stared at him, and in that silence I realized I was exhausted by him, utterly, speechlessly tired. Here's one more secret for the road, Julian. You have severe asthenozoospermia, in plain English, you're sterile. So tell me, could that child ever be yours? Julian's head snapped up, every trace of color bled from his face. I'd learned the truth the afternoon Hartwell ate something bad and I rushed him to the hospital for a full workup. The report landed in my hands. I kept quiet to spare his pride. But since Hartwell insisted on haunting me, I decided to give his life a little chaos. Julian's silhouette vanished beyond the campus gate. I knew exactly where Hartwell was headed. Let's go. We're picking my wedding gown. Wedding gown? Of course. You didn't think a bare license was enough, did you? I need a full-blown ceremony that screams to the world, this woman is Adrian's wife, so no one dares touch her. I travel a lot. I need every predator in Eastbrook to know you're off-limits while I'm away. Always, Adrian thinks 3 moves ahead for me. Deal. I reach for his hand, but Hartwell swings me onto his back instead. Wife, for the rest of my life this back is yours alone. I rest my cheek against his broad shoulder, warmth flooding every cell. Mom, you can rest now. Your daughter has finally come home. Clutching a lock of Logan's hair, Julian marches into the lab and orders a paternity test. Outside, Hartwell paces like a madman, praying the boy is his. When the report finally drops, Hartwell reads the verdict and staggers as though struck by lightning. The child isn't his. Julian's ears ring with white noise. The floor seems to dissolve. Hartwell slumps to his knees. My voice replays in his skull. Accept the brutal truth whether you like it or not. Damn you, Bianca, you lied to me. Hartwell storms back to Hartwell Manor, kicks Bianca's bedroom door off its latch, and drags her from the mattress by her hair. Ah, that hurts, let go, you're ripping my hair out. Julian slaps her hard, then clamps a hand around her throat. Whose bastard is that kid, Bianca? Hartwell's not mine. Seeing the fury in his eyes, Bianca's gaze flickers with guilt. The more she shrinks, the tighter his fingers squeeze. So you screwed around and handed me the bill? You bitch, die. Spots exploding in her vision, she snatches a crystal ashtray and smashes it against his skull. Freed, she bolts in blind terror. Her address book's a mess. Truth is, she has no idea who the father could be. Every shouted syllable tumbles straight to Eleanor on the staircase. She blocks Bianca's escape. Slut, you dared milk my son for child support. Slap. Eleanor rains blow after blow. Bianca fights back, and the two lock in a clawing, hair-pulling brawl. They tumble down the marble flight together, shrieking, then lie still unconscious. Julian files for divorce and banishes Bianca from the estate. But Hartwell refuses to surrender the boy. 5 years of bedtime stories can't be erased by a DNA sheet, and since Hartwell never father another child, Logan stays. Eleanor, however, remains comatose from a brain bleed, locked in a vegetative state. That same afternoon, inside Blackwood Manor, a lavish wedding is underway. Adrian keeps my hand clasped in his as we glide down the aisle while bodyguards bar Julian from setting foot on the grounds. Night falls, the gates stay shut. The man who once owned my heart finally grasps that Hartwell has lost the only woman who mattered. Hartwell turns away, hollow, and collapses before Hartwell reaches the street. We never see him again. 3 months later I'm carrying twins, a boy and a girl. Mrs. Blackwood can't stop smiling. Adrian handles my every meal like a bomb technician. Thrilled, terrified, devoted. The storm passes, the sky clears, and if you lift your eyes, there's always a rainbow. Thanks for listening to tonight's story. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? If you liked this video, smash that like button and share it with friends. We're dying to read your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. See you next time.